So welcome back to part 2 on how to make the inventory system currently. And where we left off is we just made the definition of an item. Now we need to we have to use it somewhere. So we're going to create a new script and we're going to call this item database. Let's just call this database. This is going to contain all our item information that we want each player to be able to use or let the game deal with in a certain way. So here, because we made this a serializable class, we can go ahead and use it here. So we have to make these public. We don't have to make it public yet. I'll show you why we'll make it public. So here we can say a list. We want to use a list, and to use the list property, we have to call a new namespace, and that namespace is system.collections.generic. So this namespace just gives us access to more things to use. So here we're going to create a list of items. So this is going to be a whole list of items of all the items that we're using in our game. So here we'll say an item. So this list is going to be just items, and we can go ahead and name this items, and we'll say this is equal to a new list of items. We should autofill everything. So now we have a list of items. Now we just need to fill it up. So to do this, we'll say the items, the list dot add. So to add to a list, all you have to do is get the list you want to add to and say add, and we want to add a item. And here, because we're making a new item, we'll have to say as said, making a new item. So we'll say it's a new item, and when you open the parentheses, you can see the values here from this script here, the required things to make an item. So I only have one thing, so let's just fill this in. So here let's have a string and call this sword, and the description is the almighty sword of awesomeness and destruction. Can be both. And we need a item type, and this item type is a weapon, of course. And close it off, and now you have a weapon, a new item. So if we go here, we need to create a new game object in the world, and we'll say create empty, and we'll call this one you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna put the inventory script on this one as well, because so we'll take away from the player script, and let's just remove it actually, and we're just going to put it on this empty game object, and we're just going to say this is let's just call it UI system for now. You can name it whatever. I can't think of a good name because this is going to contain our item database, our inventory system, our crafting system, and our hotbar on one single game object. So it's all organized, and we can spawn it all at once into our scene and have it as just one game object, so we can check what it is. So here, go add the inventory system, and let's just keep this as 3 and 3, and go ahead and put in the what did we just make? The item database. And as you can see, you can't see anything. You'll be like, wait, why can't I see my items? To see your items, we have to make this public, and I'll show you what I meant before. So the list is going to show here, and you make this 1, but you can't see anything. You'll be like, wait, this is useless. To see the information, you have to make all these fields public as well, or you can make them serializable, but we'll just keep these public. And you go back and you're going to see them pop up here. So here you just see the arrow pop up, open it up, and here you have your fields. So if we start the game now, you can already see this loaded up our new item. And now let's just say you want to make an item, but you don't want to give it a item type, because it might just be a random item. To do this, all you do is copy and paste this, take away this, take away this, and now it is a valid function. Like, you're like, wait, these are the same names. Here you'll be able to see that now it has 1 overload. If you go past at the end of this end of the sentence, it'll say +1 overload. That means there are 2 possible ways this can go. So you can go ahead and take that out, and it is a valid thing. So we can use this later on. I'm just showing you now because why not? Now we have an item. We need to add it to our inventory system, but currently you won't be able to see it because it has no item icon. So here we'll say a public. It's going to have a public, and I just realized because we're going to be using textures, we're going to be using system, or maybe we're going to be having to use, we're going to have to use Unity engine for this one actually. So we're going to call a texture, and we're just going to say item icon, and we're not going to fill it in here. We're just going to say this item icon is equal to a certain thing. So this item icon, we're going to retrieve it from somewhere, and that somewhere is a resource folder. The resource folder is built in whenever the game is built. So in all the game files, there's always going to be a resource folder. If you don't have one specifically here, it'll create a folder and it'll just be empty, but it will always create it. So we can go ahead and create it here, and you have to make sure it's spelled correctly. So capital R resources.
You're a parcel mouth. Why don't you tell us?
Resources. And we can go ahead and go into it. It's empty. And we're going to go ahead and get a image to represent our item. So you're going to have to do this for every item, or else they're not going to be able to show in the inventory. So now that I got a image of the internet, you can get it wherever. Generally, they don't have any copyright laws. They're just happy to be used. They want to be used. So here you'll have a texture, and you have to make sure it's a texture, not a sprite UI. The Unity UI system requires it to be a UI to be used in the image component, but here, because we're using the GUI system, we have to make sure it is a texture, because our script will be looking for a texture. So to get it, we'll have to give it a path to follow. And to do this, Unity Engine has its own built-in function to look for the resource folder. So here, all you have to say is resources, and here it is, because it allows you to find that resource folder automatically. And we'll say get the load function, because we want to load the certain texture from that file, and in which this case it will be a texture 2D. This is a 2D image, and we're just filling in it'll be looking for any textures, and it'll find whatever's exactly where it should be. Oh my god, I'm so confused. Alright, let's get so we'll need to give it a string path. So we can go ahead and apply. We can go ahead and create a new folder to keep it all organized, and just say this one item icons, and drag it in there. So it's in the resource folder. So in the string, we're going to say it is, because we've already loaded into the resource folder. So we'll stop here, and the rest of the string to get to this texture needs to be in the string. So in which this case is item icons. Item icons. Make sure it's the correct spelling, correct punctuation, grammar, whatever. And each path, new folder requires a /, and we need to direct it to what this icon is, in which this case it is called weapon. So our item is called sword, so we'll have to say this one's called sword, and we'll say please look in the resource folder, look in the item icons folder, and look for the texture that has the name of the object. So all you have to say is the name, and close it off with a semicolon. And we can go ahead and check if it worked by going here, pressing start, and here you can see it perfectly loads our item. So if we change this name to something else, it's not going to load it. It doesn't find a texture that has this name. So we go back here, correct the spelling. Now we can draw this into our inventory. So we go to our inventory system, and we need a few things. So again, we're going to be using a list. So to do this, again, using system.collections.generic, and we need two lists. The first list is a list of items, because this is going to keep track of what items are in the inventory currently. So they will have the definition of item within them. And we'll call this one inventory equals new list of items. And we need to have another one that's going to keep track of the slots. So this is going to get a bit confusing. You'll be like, why are you not using the inventory list here, and why do you have the slot things? This is just what I found what works. Try it without the slots after we're done. So just swap out all the slots definitions. So we'll just call this slots. So after we've completed this, just go ahead and swap the slots, all the slot definitions for the inventory. But in the meantime, follow what I have here. At the start, we want to, so void start. So we want a start function here, and we want to create new items within these slots through the script. So we don't have to say we want this many slots or whatever. We just want to do this within the script, and to do that, we'll have to go through a for loop. And this one's going to be interesting because we're going to be multiplying two numbers together, which is the slot X and the slot Y. So this number will be 9 currently, so we want to create here so within the script it's creating 9 items that we can put in the inventory. So here for both of these we just want to add a new item. Don't worry about this, I'll show you what don't worry about the error that you get. I'll show you what to do in that case. Because we're not giving any arguments, we're not putting in any of the definitions, we need to create a empty function that takes no arguments or parameters. So again, copy it and just say takes nothing, and and we'll make sure. Oh, I just realized this is not going to work. Most of my functions aren't going to work without an unique ID. So each item should have its own ID. So you don't have to go through strings. You don't have to write out a full string to look for something. All you need is an ID number. So before I go on, we put in item ID. And just put it int ID, ID, and we'll say item ID is equal to ID, and we'll have to do the same here, copy paste this, put it there, and we're going to get an error here because this doesn't have an ID number, and we'll just say this one is 0. Okay, so once we have that, we have created the empty parameterless function. We can go ahead and say the item ID is going to be equal to -1. So we're just creating an empty game object. You don't need to do this. This just makes sure we're not just getting random information. It's getting a empty item. So now this will work. And if I go ahead and start, you'll see that, let's take this away, we'll make this 0. So we press start, and as you can see, this automatically creates 9 slots because of here, changes to 4, and it should create 12 slots. And as you can see, it automatically creates 12 slots. So now we need to fill it. We need to be able to fill it somehow, and we need to create a function for that. So go here, create a function, and just say add item, because all this function is going to do is add an item. And actually, let's do this. So I'll show you what would happen if we don't have this function. So let's say inventory dot add. We're gonna have to actually So we're gonna have to create a reference to the item database. So the item database is this. Well, currently it's just this. So we can actually take away this. So all of this is just the database. And we'll create a we'll just call this database for now. We'll create another database later, I think. So this database is going to be equal to get component dot item database. Because they're on the same object, all you need to say is get database. And let's see if we got any errors if we start. No, we don't. Okay, so now we want to add items from the database. Okay, so we're going to create a function that we're going to be using later on, but we can do that now. So this one is going to be because it's going to be called from different game objects, we'll say it's a public, so its access is public, and we want to have return a item from this, and we'll call this function fetch the item by ID and put it in ID. Now we need to loop through all the items that we have here, which is just one right now, but we're gonna have more. So we want to go through this dot count. So it's going through as many items as there here. The for loop will be as big as how many items we have in the database. So if we've got 40 items, it's going to go through 40 things, because the count right now is 1. All it's doing is going to 1, and we don't need these actually. We'll keep it small, keep it simple. So it's going through all the items, and if the items dot the I, so the current one that we're on now, so it'll increment constantly until it finds the thing. So if the item dot ID is equal to the ID that we sifted in, then we want to return the item's ID, the current one that we're on. And if we don't get it, return, we don't get anything from it, so we'll just return null. So if you didn't understand it, so let's just get more items actually. Let's get more items. Let's go. We need more icons in here. Oops. Let's just get an icon here. Let's get one without item description. So one, and we'll say flower. Give it a description. The prettiest. Wait, how do you spell prettiest? The most beautiful flower in all the land. And it's not gonna have a item type, and we need to give it a item icon. Okay, now we have a item now for our flowers. So now we have more than one item, so we can test if this works. So in our inventory script, we'll say inventory.add database.fetch by ID inventory inventory, oh my god, 0 is equal to database fetch by ID 0. So now we have to draw it somehow. To draw it, so when we're going through all these loops, so it's been called so many times because the onGUI has a system just like the update function that it draws. It gets called multiple times, check if this needs to be called, and if it, so calling as many times as the onGUI method is, it's calling the draw inventory the same amount. So every time it's calling it, it's going through all these loops, checking it constantly. So it's so fast, it's constantly redrawing the inventory. It's just so fast we can't physically see it unless we slow it down. So it's good, just keep redrawing. So we want to check if the current inventory slot that we're over has an item in it, and if it does, we want to draw something. So down, we'll say down here. So I plus plus. Oops. Okay, let's take away this, and we want to create a int, and we'll say it is 0 because it's a local variable, and we'll say I plus plus. So every time we loop through something, the I increases. So now we can use this in our inventory. So if inventory, or let's use slots in this one. We'll use slots. So if slots, so we're adding an inventory item to the inventory. Sorry, I'm all over the place. I need to go through everything so you can understand it, so you can develop on this. So we're adding an item to our inventory. We now want to say through every loop, so every loop inventory.i. Oops. Yeah, so our slots.i, so there'll be this on the same number, is equal to the inventory.i. So let's say this is 3 and this is on 3. So the I now is on 3. The slots, this list of items, the third one is going to be equal to the inventory, which will be the third, which is this item, which will take this to 0. You'll see what I mean in a sec. So slots.i, so if slots.i, the item name is not equal to this because it should be empty, or you can say if it is, the ID is equal to -1 because we showed here it's an empty game object. It will show when there's no game object in the thing. We'll just say if the item name is not null, we want to do something. So we want to draw a texture. So we'll use the GUI system draw texture. Easy. So because we're using a texture here, all it is doing is drawing the texture, and we need to give it the place it wants to be. We want the picture to show up, and the width of it, how big we want it, etc., is 60 and 60, and this is where we want it to be. And we want to say what picture to draw, and here we'll say the slot. So the current increment we're on now, we want to draw that increment's item icon. Close that up, and I think we got through a lot in this video, but I think it all should work. Fingers crossed. Alright. Everything's good here. We're going to press play. And we're getting a couple of these things. A couple of errors. Not sure why we're getting these. I'll have to look. I should know why we're getting this. So if we go into the game, the third Oh, the fourth one I should have said, because 3 is because it starts on 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. So you can see this is working, and it is drawing the correct item. And if we go back here, let's quick another test. Fetch by ID 1. And we just go in, and it turns it into the flowers. And before you go, I'll quickly check why this is happening. Okay, I solved the function. It's weird, but I did what I said I should have done, which is the item dot -1. So if the item, the current slot that we're on, if the item ID is not equal to -1, which means it's an item, then we want to draw a function, which is kind of weird. I'm not sure why it is giving me errors when I use technically the same thing. Actually, I just realized. Let's make this. Let's screw it. You can either do one of these, but I want to make it a string. So if you can do the item ID function, or is not equal to null, because before it wasn't empty, it was null because there was nothing in it. So if you go back now, we shouldn't get any errors, and as you can see, we're not getting any errors. So don't use the empty empty string. Use the null, because on the start it starts off null. So if we go here, this isn't empty, it's null. This is null, null, etc. So you can do the item ID technique, or you can do the item.name technique. So that'll end this video. So this is the end of part 2. In the next videos, we'll be expanding on the inventory system, getting all its functions ready, being able to add items a lot more easily, remove items, drag and drop items, etc. Use items, add them to the, and then after we did the inventory, we'll move on to either the crafting system or the hotbar. Probably gonna get to the crafting system. It's also using the GUI function, the GUI method. It'll be fresh in our minds, and most of it is just, or some of it is just using what method we used in the inventory script. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed what I just made. Now there's a lot of tutorials online on this, but stick with me. This is going to get crazier than what they did before in their videos. So thank you for watching again. I hope you enjoyed. Tell me if the quality of my videos have dropped. I've been rushing some of these videos. I haven't been writing scripts for them. I haven't took the time to draw images for most of them. No, not proper ones, but we're getting to that. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Part 3 will be coming out in the morning. As you can see, it is 1:22 a.m. I might start working on a script before I go to bed, and I'll hopefully get it in the morning. Goodbye.